Hello there, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about Ed Wood, which is a Tim Burton film from 1995 that came and went. This is Burton's first bomb, and Tim Burton doesn't have that many bombs, really. There's only actually a few that have not done well. He tends to do well in his films, even if in some of the later films maybe aren't as good a quality as some of his earlier work. But I mean, this one bombed, and then Mars Attacks bombed, so two of his big bombs in a row, and you know, Dark Shadows bombed much later. But generally his films do fairly well, but some the quality in some are better than others. But this was his first one, but to be honest, no one expected this one to do well. It was a film that was made because Tim Burton had made two Batmans, Edward Scissorhands, and Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Beetlejuice, all of which had made a lot of money. And it was like, well, let him do what he wants. And yeah, this one will not make a lot of money, but he's kind of earned the right to make a film that he really wants to make if it's on a lower budget. So this one was made for very little money. Apparently Burton deferred his fee to get it made, to keep it low budget enough. And you can see the fact that the people making this film loved this film. So because it was low budget, they could cast whoever they wanted. They actually shot it in black and white, which was a problem for the original studio, which was Sony, who did not want it in black and white, so Disney took over. And because of them, it was like, fine, we don't mind black and white. They were already making Nightmare Before Christmas with Burton anyway, the stop motion film. And both these films came out fairly close together. Nightmare Before Christmas did well, this one didn't do so well. But I think overall they did okay out of it, because Nightmare Before Christmas is a perennial now. And this one is viewed as a classic film. It's one of those films that it might not make you a lot of money, but it's good to have to say, yeah, we made that. It's one of those films that's like, it's good to have in your library as a film you backed. And it's one of those films that's always been like well respected. It's always had a cachet of being a very good film. It won Martin Landau the Oscar, much to the hatred of Samuel L. Jackson, who's also up for the Best Supporting Actor Oscar, and he was very kind of dismissive of Bela Lugosi performance by Landau. He basically said, I saw that performance, don't bullshit me, and it was like, huh? Well, if you saw the performance, why not respectful of the performance? It was a very good performance, and a lot better than the Pulp Fiction performance Jackson gave, which was, just basically him being himself. So, in my opinion, because we all know that's as an actor who plays himself a lot in films. So, the film, yeah, obviously I was a bit annoyed with that comment because this is a good performance. But the film itself is wonderful, and it's darker than people gave it credit for at the time. I mean, a lot of people, one of the only criticisms we got was it sugarcoated Ed Wood a little bit too much. It didn't go into all the darkness of Ed Wood's life, where it would go at a certain point, because the film ends on the release of Plan 9 from Outer Space, before he becomes an alcoholic and before everything goes wrong in his life. And it misses out a couple of films he made in between. But it's meant to be a film about Ed Wood, and you get the suggestion throughout the film that this is not going to go well for him, that he's deluding himself about his talent and everything else, and there is a sense that all that stuff's there, and on the rewatches you see it a lot more. Like, no, they're not sugarcoating it. It's like they're using suggestion so that when you rewatch the film you can see the seeds of where Wood's going to go. But it starts out because Johnny Depp plays Ed Wood as a very optimistic figure. He has his moments of doubt, but he always comes back and he's got a upbeat 50s American can-do attitude to life, which is contrasted with Bela Lugosi, played by Landau, who has been a star, has fallen from grace, is now starring in terrible films when he can get them. A lot of the films he's making, a lot of the stuff he's doing is now theatre production of Dracula, and he's basically living on very few savings. He's got a drug addiction which is taking away all of his money. He can barely pay the rent. He's on unemployment, and he's essentially in bad shape, really bad shape when Wood meets him, and it's a sign of where a showbiz career will go. You know, there's this thing of like, oh, people become stars and they remain stars. Like most people who do well in the film or TV industry have a run of a little time where they're very successful. Then it goes down, down, and down, and down, and they just hope that they don't hit too much of a depth on the way down. I mean, the better careers of people who are not like mega stars, not like Tom Cruises and Will Smiths, a lot of the time the career goes up and down. You know, you have good years and bad years when you're in demand and you're not in demand, and you alternate TV and film and theatre if you have a chance. And this time it was much fewer opportunities. You're either in film, low budget, you're in either studio film, low budget film, or theatre. And theatre didn't pay well at all. And low budget films didn't really pay well at all because they were really low budget to make the money back, because they were going to the kind of low end cinemas, which means you couldn't charge that much for them because they're low budget films. Only if you were in a studio system at that point could you make any money. And Bela Lugosi had kind of burned his bridges by that point. In the studio system, like everyone knew he had a drug problem. His accent was a problem. He had not he could not transfer to TV with his accent. Plus, he couldn't deal with live TV. Unlike Boris Karloff was an experienced actor well before it became Frankenstein, and he could always switch between like theatre runs, and he could get big theatre runs on Lugosi. He could still be in films. He was always the guy who was like the classy horror guy, so he could still command films. He could be in bigger budget films, lower budget films. He worked with Val Luton. He went on to TV in the 50s, and he might have an odd clunk of here or there, but he managed his career well. He understood what his career was, and he could budget for that. Lugosi really couldn't. Lugosi was more of an egotist. He was more of a star. He'd been a star on the stage in his home country, and he couldn't really adjust. And most actors don't even have the Karloff level of becoming like a respected character actor. Most actors just plummet to the lower dregs, and that's what the film's about, is the lower dregs of filmmaking, because that's where Wood starts out as and where we end up as. Because he has no talent for this. He loves all these films. He adores them, but he doesn't understand the mechanics of filmmaking. He doesn't understand you have to do like 4 days is not enough time to make a film. You have to have more than one take. You have to write the dialogue so the actors can see it. You do not cast a lunk because he's the son of an investor, because he can't say dialogue properly. You don't give Tor Johnson exposition in a film. Like, he would just make decisions out of expediency rather than, does this make sense, does it work? He could not understand that all of his special effects looked fake, like intercutting like all the stock footage with things he shot. They didn't match at all with the lighting. They didn't understand the lighting basics of matching shots. They didn't understand the mechanics of getting a performance, of working with actors. He didn't understand just basic dialogue and pacing and getting to the point. And it was just like, there's so many things he couldn't do. But his films were his films. They were his. Like, no one else would make them. And the film's a love letter to the passion, but it's made by people who understand the craftsmanship of filmmaking as well, and they understand why Wood failed. They understand his passion, but they understand exactly why he failed, why he never learned the basics he needed. He was a fan making films. He was not a professional making films. Now, Lugosi was a professional making films, but he's a professional who knew his time was over and he was in trouble, and he understood the mess he was in and the pain of the mess, the pain of what he'd done to himself in a lot of ways, and what the industry had done to him. It was a bit of both. He in the industry, they weren't that interested in Bela Lugosi. I mean, he's had his big part with Dracula. He had other parts, but he was never really like an easy sell to the audience because he was a villain, really, in a lot of the films. And in the sense, he did better when he was supporting parts for other better actors that he could bounce off. Then he tended to be good. You know, he had the rivalry with Karloff, but he was much better when he was with Karloff because Karloff could raise him up and could keep him from hamming it up. And there was just a sense of he did himself in, but the studio was also not that interested in him. They could understand Karloff, they could understand Lugosi as well. But this the film is about the pain of realising your mistakes and realising your failures versus someone who doesn't understand that. Like Ed Wood doesn't understand that. He's got blinders on to the pain he's going to feel later on. He'll keep he cross dresses. He doesn't understand that's something that people do not like. You know, to his friends, his weirdo friends, it's great to be accepting. But to the outside cynical Hollywood world, that's just like a no, we don't want that. Nope. And which is still the case now. They try and say it's not the case now, but they try and be undemanding and woke and stuff, but that stuff doesn't sell well to the mass audiences, so it'll eventually just go away. Unless you're doing a limited audience film. And again, with those films, a lot of time the director gets 1 or 2 films and that's it, and then their career's over. I mean, there's not much changed. I mean, there's like in Britain, a lot of directors get funding from the BFI and get 1 or 2 films made, and you never hear from them again. It's like, what happened to them? Well, and America's the same way. I mean, there's still lots of careers that had promising starts, and then boom, gone. And Ed Wood didn't even have that. He didn't have the kind of understanding of the technical craft of that. He just had the enthusiasm. But through him, I think most people who are in the arts can really appreciate the enthusiasm and also see the absurdity of it all because he doesn't have the talent. But a lot of people don't realise they don't have the talent either. It's like, it's one of those things, it's like talent's very rare. It has to be worked on, and a lot of films you see are maybe people who maybe aren't up to the level of the budget they've been given. You know, and the film was about, there's a sense of it about the enthusiasm versus what it leads to. And what it leads to with Ed Wood is he's making films he's passionate about, but he's having to degrade his life to get them made. He's having to go through hell to get them made. He gets baptized at one point. He casts another actress instead of his girlfriend at one point to get the financing for a film. And he there's all these things to demean himself into something that would actually make most people go, am I a good person? Why did I do that? He's got a blinkered state of it's for the film, and he's in a world of his own. So that's why his dialogue's always so weird, because he's almost like doing a performance to himself, and his audience is not critical. And there's just that sense of the kind of the aspect of fandom that is uncritical, and it means maybe the work's not going to be that good. And there's that element in the film, the kind of sadness of this doesn't work, and it comes through the Lugosi character, the sense of this is not going to work. This is very painful. Life in arts is very painful, and that's going to be Ed Wood's future. He's going to die of alcoholism, a heart attack through alcoholism, by the time he reaches his early 50s. It's not going to be good for him. That's the thing he is a fantasy for. And anyone with a passion for film kind of some way understands that. You're passionate about a fantasy. I mean, in some ways it's very enjoyable, in other ways it might not be a good idea. And this film is in love with the fantasy, but also knows there are costs and it may be not a good idea. There's there are issues involved with this kind of uncritical fandom, which is funny because Tim Burton's the guy keeps on being accused of being a world of his own, doesn't understand the real world. We understand enough in this films to understand there's issues with following this kind of impulse. I've always thought he's a much smarter director than some of his critics give him credit for having a kind of cynical interest in where some of these impulses go. Like, it's not all good. So Ed Wood's a wonderful film. Despite all the darkness that's below the surface I've been talking about, it's very charming. The scenes are very witty. Depp and Landau are terrific, and you get to see all these recreations of these films that maybe you might not want to see in real life, but the recreations are gorgeous. It is just a beautiful film, and I can't recommend it enough. It's just wonderful. So go watch Ed Wood if you've not. If you've not seen it, I don't know why you've not seen it, but go see it. Right, that's me for now. Bye.